Hello, everybody. Welcome to Economics with the Honorable David M. Walker. I'm Nick Palavita. I'll be your host for today's presentation. And today we're also going to look more at the budget and some of Trump's comments. And one of the interesting comments he made was to increase the military budget from about $1 billion to 1.5 billion, which we're going to look it up, but 1.5, excuse me, not billion, trillion. That is a lot of money. And then on top of it, Medicare. What are we going to do about Medicare? He says, we'll send Medicare problems to the states. And of course, that's a big one because Medicare looks like it has some serious financial problems. So with these two bullets that just got shot across the bow, we're going to bring in the Honorable David M. Walker, the former Comptroller General of the United States, to discuss how we're going to fund this $1.5 trillion defense budget, and what are we going to do about Medicare? Are we really going to dump Medicare on the states? So, David, I don't know if you saw those statements, but I think they're very interesting. Number one, it doesn't surprise me. He wants 1.5 trillion, which is bigger than the budget, the entire GDP of many countries in the world. But the other thing that got me, because we're always looking, how are you going to solve the Medicare problem? Well, the federal government just won't pay it anymore. It's going to be given to the states. So anyway, I'm curious what your thoughts are on these two big earth-shaking ideas.
Well, first, the president's budget was 2 months late. It's supposed to be submitted by the first Monday in February. And while the understanding flexibility given for the first year of the presidency. This is the second year of the presidency, and so it's way late. Secondly, it's incomplete. Thirdly, it includes a number of unrealistic assumptions. Fourthly, it talks about spending more money in the short term, specifically about $450 billion more for defense. Some of that is 1 year money, in other words, one time. For example, we replenish our stockpiles and try to expand the military industrial base and spend money with regard to the Golden Dome project. It proposes to cut non-defense discretionary spending by about $73 billion without really providing any meaningful specificity about how you're going to make that happen. It's about 10% of the non-defense discretionary budget, but it's not equally divided by all different agencies. Some have bigger cuts than others. And it does nothing, absolutely nothing, to address the major drivers of our structural imbalance, namely mandatory spending, which is about 75% of the budget right now. He's only talking about discretionary spending. Mandatory spending includes Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and a range of other programs, interest on the debt, and it also doesn't do anything with regard to tax preference. So, as they normally say, this is the president's proposal. The president proposes, the Congress disposes, and there are many aspects of this budget that just don't pass a straight face test. There are going to have to be a lot of changes made before anything gets adopted. And you can probably pretty much count on Congress not being able to get the appropriations done on time again. The last time they did it was 1996. And I'm not optimistic they're going to get it done on time this time, although I'm hopeful that they're now going to end up funding DHS, which they should have done a couple of weeks ago. And now the House is probably going to end up passing the Senate bill, which they should have passed a couple of weeks ago. They evidently didn't learn from Ronald Reagan that when you can get 80% of what you want, you take it and you fight another day for whatever you didn't get. And it looks like that's where we're headed there. By the way, it's one thing to be able to devolve Medicaid to the states, because Medicaid is a shared responsibility. It's a federal program, but it's administered by the states, and there's cost sharing between the federal government and the states. And I think it's very likely over time that you could end up block granting Medicaid. where the federal government would say, look, you can cover who you want. There are minimum standards on who you have to cover. We're going to give you X amount of money to cover those people. It's split between federal government and state. If the state wants to cover more people, that's your business, but federal government's not going to subsidize that. You have a number of states that want to provide it to people who aren't legally in our country, and the federal government is going to die on that. Medicare, totally unrealistic to devolve Medicare to the states. It would be like saying you're going to devolve Social Security to the states. Just totally unrealistic. I'm not sure it says that, Nick, but if it does, it's totally unrealistic.
Well, that's what he proposed, I believe, was Medicare to be taken over by the states. And I was going, that would solve a lot of the unfunded liability problem by the federal government, which is basically to walk away from the debt and just say, it's your problem now, states. You deal with the healthcare problems of people over age 65. But the math just doesn't add up on Medicare. As we have an aging population, 10,000 people per day turn age 65, and we don't have young workers coming in. So it used to be we have like 6 people supporting one person. Now we have 1 supporting 2, maybe, or 2 supporting 1. And the rates, David, they're too small. 2.45% when we know that the GDP the United States spends on medical care is 20%. So when you look at the math, just on a macro sense, Medicare can't survive. The only question is, it's doomed. The only question to me is, when is it doomed? But he kind of gave an exit strategy. Hey, it's doomed as far as the federal government's concerned. So now we're going to leave it up to the states to provide healthcare for people over age 65, which I think is kind of a unique twist to Medicare. Because it's a way you can offload those liabilities. Just say, hey, state, it's your problem now. So
Medicare, as you know, are several different programs. Medicare Part A is hospital insurance and inpatient care, and that is funded primarily by a payroll tax, 1.45% on the individual, 1.45% on the employer. And there's no cap. So there's, unlike Social Security, where there's a cap, there's no cap for Medicare. There are additional funds for investment, investment income that get allocated to the Medicare Trust Fund. That's for Part A, which is hospital insurance. Part B, which is supplemental medical insurance, which is outpatient and physician care. And then Part D, which is prescription drugs. Those are funded by premiums that individuals pay, which vary based upon their income, and by general revenues. And a majority of the funding for those 2 programs are through general revenues, so general taxation at the federal level. Some people have Part C, like myself. Part C is an option that you can get where you combine A, B, and D, and you have it all in one package with a private sector insurance company providing the coverage, if you will. And sometimes you can end up getting more benefits that way. But in any event, so look, it's a non-starter to say that you're going to devolve Medicare to the states. It's just a non-starter.
Okay, well, I'm just not sure how he's going to accomplish that goal. What are your thoughts about this? 1.5 trillion to defense. I mean, that is a huge amount of money, David.
Well, the first thing is we were told that we had plenty of stockpiles and that don't worry about the stockpiles. We were also told that we're only spending 1.5 billion a day on the Iran conflict, and it's not going to last very long. So the bottom line is the numbers don't add up. Okay. So, I mean, a lot of that money is, one-time infusion to be able to restock, our weapons and to try to be able to get an augmentation of military industrial capacity, because we do have a challenge. I mean, we gave a lot of weapons and ammunition and supplies to Ukraine. We're obviously using a lot in the Iran conflict. Hopefully that will wrap up before too long, but only God knows how long it's going to take. And, for that conflict, as well as the Iran-Russia war, it's a lot of money. And the simple fact of the matter is there is a lot of waste in the Defense Department. And I'm really perplexed as to why the Defense Department hasn't restarted the Defense Business Board, which I've been on and off of for 20 years, which is the mechanism that they ought to be using to try to help identify opportunities for economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. But they haven't reappointed it yet, and God knows when they will. At the same point in time, they're asking for $450 billion plus more money. I think they're going to have a long time getting that money. They'll get more money because of the war, or the quote unquote war, because we haven't declared war since World War II. Another minor problem.
Yeah, it's a special operation. I think that's what they call it. And we have a special operation. Our panel from the United States and around the world. We have Sasha Starr beaming in from Canada, Toby McDuffie beaming in from the United States, and Kim Calhoun beaming in from the United States. And Sasha has some comments.
Very simple comment. If US will adopt the Trump's plan to dominate the world oil market by taking out Iran, taking out Iranian oil with US oil, Venezuela, all these Gulf states will be subdued and will be servants of US, and he will make a deal with Putin when and how much and what to sell to whom. Then China will be completely dominated through the oil control, and the Medicare or all other little things will become nothing, because the world oil domination will easily pay for everything. And US, if it's still a superpower according to you, Dave, yes, it is until at least 2040, US has the military power to take over Iran, obliterate its military, completely control all Iranian oil. That's Trump's plan. So US might as well follow the plan. The only downside of that plan will be a couple of 100,000 killed US young soldiers. But maybe it's not such a big price to pay for absolutely hopeless situation where almost $40 trillion is US debt. So maybe this is the radical plan to get out of this nightmare.
Well, Sasha, I personally don't believe that we're going to invade Iran. We've seen over the last few days that there were some special operations where we did have troops on the ground, but the troops were rescue pilot and a weapons officer from a down there knee, which they were successful in doing. I think the real problem, Sasha, is, the Iranian oil is not as big a deal. I mean, the real issue is the other oil producers, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, etc. The Strait of Hormuz is the real problem because, as you know, oil prices are determined on a global basis. It's a world market. So even though we don't need it and certain other countries don't need it, it ends up affecting the prices. I mean, I just filled up my car this morning, and prices are considerably higher than they were before the Iran conflict. And I don't know that there's enough oil production. If you take out all the Gulf states, I don't know that there's enough oil production to meet demand. Look at the numbers. Maybe Rick will come on and.
Well, there is a country that is affected called Bangladesh because they don't have oil. Oh wait, we have somebody from Bangladesh, Dr. Sharif. How's the oil crisis hurting you in the close of the Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, right now, Bangladesh, not only Bangladesh, South Asia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh has a lot of challenges for this Iran and USA conflict. specifically as we are a very good ally of USA. So we have an agreement in between USA and Bangladesh. So we are not allowed to buy our oil from Russia. 95% of our oil and other energy comes from Middle East. So in that situations, these hormones and all of these things create a lot of challenges. Every day when I see these oil and gas stations, people has to stay in the queue with their car and with their everything's like 10 to 12 hours of time. There is a crisis of oil and gas in Bangladesh. Secondly, as many of Bangladeshi people, they work in the Middle East. So many of our people, they died and they injured because of this war in Saudi Arabia, in UAE, in Qatar, in other countries, Middle East, and so on. Third, many of our students, they are also do their masters and PhD in Iran, and they are also affected for their issues. Even because of this war, U.S. military they destroy many of the Iranian universities, including different kind of defense base and so on. So it's look like it's moving like a long-term conflict in between USA and Iran, and a country like Bangladesh and Pakistan, and definitely Pakistan negotiating with the Iran, and India, they are heavily affected by this oil and energy and so on. But my question is that how I see this USA defense and so on, they are very strong. They have all of the satellite and they have all of the military force and so on. But it's look like Trump administration moving in a unplanned war, which may create a problem both for Middle East, Asia Pacific, also for North America. So, Honorable David Walker, what's your thought about this economical challenge and war and so on? What about this global peace? Is it achievable or the conflict will move on and on and on?
Well, first, as you know, Dr. Sharif, the United States has provided additional flexibility to India to be able to buy oil from Russia during this conflict for a period of time. My question is, why hasn't the U.S. done that for Bangladesh as well? Obviously, from a strategic standpoint, India is a lot more important strategic partner from a security perspective. I would argue that if we're going to give that flexibility to India, I don't understand why we wouldn't give it to Bangladesh. What the ultimate irony with regard to this conflict is the real winner from this conflict is Russia, because oil prices have risen significantly, and that is the primary driver of their economy, and so that is problematic. I mean, clearly, there are a number of countries in Asia that are being harmed by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. I believe that if that is not opened within a relatively short period of time, there's going to start being a significant negative political impact here in the United States, because most Americans aren't focused on foreign policy. Most Americans are focused on domestic issues in general and their pocketbook in particular. And so, we need to remember, Trump and the Republicans need to remember history, and that is what happened to George Herbert Walker Bush after we ended up winning the first Gulf War. He was rated over 90% favorability, and he lost re-election because, as Bill Clinton said, it's the economy, stupid. That's what people care about. And hopefully this thing will be wrapped up soon. We'll see what happens in negotiations. There are negotiations going on that are facilitated by Pakistan, Turkey, and Egypt. There's a proposal that's been made involving a potential ceasefire for a period of time, followed by hopefully a broader agreement. Only God knows, and only time will tell.
Kevin.
Welcome back from vacation, David. I hope that you've rested well. So, one of the things I want to remind people is the last few years at Sierra Week, one of the things that I learned was the oil and gas companies have highly invested in EVs and solar. Okay, so the Sierra Week is gas, oil, and energy conference of all the world leaders that gathered together on this. And so some of the biggest conversations is this is what they have invested in EVs and solar. This way it doesn't they are win-win, whether we are fluid with gas and petroleum to sell to the public or whether the public buys EVs and solar. They said that this turn of events has forced more people to start investing more in solar. Maybe they are panicked a little bit. Recently just driving to the beach, I was very shocked because this whole war thing and gas thing has hurt our economy big time via tourism. I mean, I literally went to a hotel for Easter weekend, went a couple of days early, but I was the only person at the hotel, the only person there. I don't know that that's happened to me other than I sometimes travel there on the last day of the season, that usually, in fall, just to watch the ocean and enjoy it in peace and quiet. But for the spring to have zero people, I didn't wait in line for restaurants. I didn't wait in line at the bar, nothing. And my car was the only one parked. I didn't have to worry about a parking place. So maybe I'll take that as a plus from Trump. But what I see this is a negative impact that's going to close more places down and cause more people to lose their financial stability and sustainability that, David, you and I talk about all the time. Is sustainability is very important, and we're not going to have any in this, whatever it is that we are being pushed into. I don't know what to do to fix it. It was really sad. I'm going to watch a lot of family-owned businesses close down because of this.
I hope not, but I share your concern.
It's disturbing. It's very disturbing. It was freaky staying in a place alone. But when you're talking about, so I do, suggest to people to start investing in the solar and EVs. That's, I think, what we're going to have to do anyway. I think that that's a smart way to sustain. But, what are some other things we can do, David, to protect ourselves?
Well, it sounds like the energy companies are adopting the all-the-above strategy. I mean, you have to diversify. There's no question about that. The economy has to diversify. The companies have to diversify.
Yeah.
But we just need to achieve a reasonable balance between environmental considerations and economic considerations. Look, the military aspect of the Iran operation has been phenomenally successful. However, the disruption of the oil flow from the Strait of Hormuz has had a significant adverse impact on certain nations and on global prices overall.
The average price of gas nationwide now $4.12, which is more expensive than during 90% of the time that Biden was president.
Yeah, right. I mean, and as I said, Americans care about economics and their pocketbook, and gas prices. Energy prices are not just an issue with regard to gasoline. I mean, look at, for example, jet fuel. Jet fuel has almost doubled. And you're seeing the ripple impact with regard to pricing of airfare. You've got fertilizers, you've got plastics, you've got a number of different things that rely upon petrochemical supplies, as an input towards producing other products, if you will. So it flows through the entire economy. This thing needs to get wrapped up soon, and hopefully it will be.
Yeah. We'll hear from Jatovi, because he hasn't said anything yet, and we know he's a big Trump supporter. Kidding.
I don't do your MAGA hat.
Well, I threw it in the trash.
Round following.
But I think Kim hits on the biggest thing. And honestly, I was watching who was it? Fareed Zakaria this weekend, and he was talking about how the war itself is helping right now Russia and China the most, because not only is Russia now allowed to, as we talked about, the leases on the oil, they're able to sell that, sell their oil to other countries to hopefully alleviate the price, but it's not really going to alleviate the price that much. But then you also got China, who really, yes, oil comes through the strait to go to China. However, due to the fact that China has actually diversified their energy sources, they have a huge base around solar and a lot of other things. So the strait really isn't hurting them that much. Plus, because of the boost in EV sales due to the war, the EV sales in China, because China has BYD, has Xiaomi, has a bunch of other cars that are dominating the EV market. That's actually helped Chinese sales. I guess it gets back to, how do we get back to, how do we get out of the cycle of, I hate what the last guy did, so I can't do what the last guy did, and I'm going to undo everything the last guy did, even though what the last guy did was actually diversifying what we were doing. How do we get back to building the EV infrastructure, which would help us diversify and help those individuals avoid the situation dealing with oil? How do we get back to just these things that were great for our economy, but now, as you see, we're tanking in a lot of ways?
Yeah, Delby, let me just comment real quick, and I know we've had Nick, you can follow on Dr. Sharif and the order. First, clearly Russia is benefiting from higher oil prices, no question. Okay, I would debate whether China is benefiting other than through the EVs. I think they've been delayed in being harmed because China has a very large oil reserve. Okay, and we drew down on a lot of our oil reserve during the last administration. But the bottom line is that, so they have, my understanding, and Rick may know better through research, but my understanding, they had about 120 days supply of reserves of oil, and if this thing doesn't drag out, too long, then they'll be okay. But that's a timing difference. That's not whether or not they're being affected. But let me stop at that.
We have Sasha, Sharif, and then Steve. Sasha.
Well, I think the Iranian proposal that they will take a fee from each tanker going through Strait of Hormuz, and all they're asking is about $2 to $3 per barrel. So if the barrel costs, say, plus minus $100, so it will be cost at the end of the day $102, maybe $103 a barrel. That's something the industry can leave, and if oil will go as a result of it down to $80 a barrel or less. So that will be not such a big deal, and that will be either part, or it will pay instead of reparations that U.S. and Israel would have to pay to Iran for indiscriminate bombing of the country. So this will spell the end of Trump as a president, and probably even before midterm election. So as I said before, he must invade massively and have a full victory. It's either that or bye-bye Trump.
Yeah, I don't think that we're going to invade Iran. And secondly, I would agree with you that if we could resolve this with agreeing that Iran can charge $1 to $3 a barrel as a transit fee going through the Strait of Hormuz, although you got to keep in mind that only half of the strait is Iranian territory. Half of it is Omani territory. But nonetheless, the Omanis aren't threatening international passage. If we could resolve it with them getting $2 to $3 a barrel, Um, I think you take the deal. All right. I mean, yeah, but
Um,
Dave, how about
I think it's a lot more complicated than that because we want them to renounce their nuclear ambitions.
they will never do that? You know that, Dave.
Yeah,
They will never do that.
they're not. Yeah.
They will not do that. And a man probably will be asked politely to sign off his part of the proceeds.
Hey guys, Steve, I got
A
him. I
man
couldn't
will
find
be
the.
gladly doing that.
I
For
couldn't
Steve
find
wants-
the. I couldn't
Steve
find the
wants to
link,
skip
so I'm
forward.
going to be here
There we
next week. I just want to say hi to David Walker, and I'll tell you, it's just such a disruption in U.S. foreign policy. But I hope we think we can stabilize the situation. Pray for our troops that are over there, and any loss of life, potential loss of life. And I just it's going to be interesting to see how this thing plays out. But I think it is about the oils, but energy, about disruption of U.S. foreign policy, kind of like this America first, which I think can be dangerous when we get into wars that we don't know how long they're going to last. Trump keeps saying it's over, but don't you think he's overplaying that, David?
Well, he needs to be more definitive about what does he mean by it's over.
Yeah.
I think he could. I think he could say, "We've achieved our military objectives. We're done."
Right.
And now, what he could do, and he may, we're done. European nations and other nations in Asia that rely upon the Strait of Hormuz in order to get your energy, you need to get here and you need to secure that. We'll keep 2 or 3, missile-guided destroyers there to help out, but we're not going to assume the primary responsibility for reopening the Strait of Hormuz, and we'll just have to suck it up on energy prices until you get it done.
Absolutely.
Dr. Sherry.
What happens? It's
I'll be here next week. David,
before the last war. Okay? Now it's closed, and US will leave, and it will remain closed. So, what exactly US achieved as a result of that war? Zero, absolute zero, so far as the way I.
Well, they
I
totally degraded Iran's military capabilities. You can't say that's zero. Dr. Sharif, go ahead.
They will rebuild it very quickly. You know that.
I have issues. I have a very interesting issues. I think the global media, they never discuss these issues. In April 6, 2026, like today, Bangladesh has launched emergency vaccine campaign to combat a fast spreading disease that has already caused nearly 100 suspected children death in the past 3 weeks. You know that USA basically provide funding for the vaccine, and today we also discuss about these healthcare issues to Bangladesh. But in US Agency for International Development, USA, suspend all of the assistance program in Bangladesh following a border direct from the US government to halt nearly all of the foreign aid. For that particular issues, these 100 projects, like healthcare projects, actually do not getting $550 million from USAID, and we are observing the impact right now that around 100 children in Bangladesh, they died. Naturally, the global media, they do not discuss these issues. On the other hand, we are observing USA, according to this discussion, heavily investing in defense. So definitely, I want to give thanks to all of my US friends and US donor agencies to so on. To last 50 years of time, they are supporting Bangladesh healthcare and Bangladesh vaccine, like all of the countries. But what is your analysis? What actually USA achieved through this war, and why USA stopped all of the like USAID fund, and it caused children death and all of the things right now, even in Bangladesh. 100 children died in Bangladesh. So do you think that USA has to restructure their policy, including healthcare, war, energies, and so on? How USA can overcome from these challenging things? Also, Bangladesh suffering for that, right? Our 100 children died because of US stopped vaccine money and funding and everything, and US government stopped US aid. So do you think, is it good? Is it good for humanity? Is it good for global peace?
Well, first, understand that the primary responsibility of the federal government is to assure national and homeland security. That's number one priority. Secondly, the federal government has grown dramatically. It's lost control of its finances. My personal view is the administration went too far on USAID. It's cut it back too much. We only spend about 1% of our budget on foreign aid. That's part of our soft power. That's part of our ability to make a positive difference that not only can help others, but also improve our image and our relations around the world. My personal opinion is they went too far, and we need to relook at it, and we need to restart some of those programs. At the same point in time, they haven't gone far enough to be able to address the driver of our structural financial problems. And that was the case with regard to the president's budget. He wants to spend a lot more money on defense. He wants to spend less money on other non-discretionary without being realistic about how you're going to achieve that. And the thing that's actually driving our problem, he doesn't want to touch at all. And so I'm frustrated by where we're at, where we are, and where we're headed. And I'm going to try to do what I can to try to help change course to the extent that I can.
I think it's interesting that Trump seems to start things and not finish them. I mean, my visit to DC was very successful in meeting more senators and Congress people than what we had planned on. So I'm very happy about that. And I almost feel like a lobbyist who doesn't get paid. But when I was there, I decided to tour a little bit, and the White House or the Capitol looks like it's been bombed. Like the grounds just look horrible. They're all dug up all over the place. Looks like, giant mounds of molehills, part of the building.
The East Wing construction project. Yeah.
Well, it goes beyond just the East Wing. I mean, the whole yard is potholed. So it's just a little bit disturbing and sad, but it's been like that for quite some time. I mean, he seems to start things with all of these grandiose ideas and then loses interest or loses funding. And now we're left with a mess, as always. But, there's just a lot going on. And I think that he's starting a lot of things that are not going to get cleaned up, and they're going to be left as a big mess in the next 2 years.
Well, we have midterm elections coming up in November. The way things look right now, the Republicans will lose the House. They could lose the Senate. They're in a better position in the Senate than they are the House. But Trump may not be running in November, and he can't run again. But his party is concerned, and rightfully so.
Hey, just really quickly, and everything along those same lines. I'm just curious your thoughts, and we talked about it earlier and everything, but Dave, do you think that there's going to be a push to get a Article 25 on the president, and how will that impact the economy and what's going on? Because I know we had this government shutdown, but there are some people, including those in the Democratic Party, that are seriously looking at this, particularly if he launches these attacks that he's promising on tomorrow.
No, because that's got to be started by the cabinet, and the cabinet has to invoke Article 25, and the cabinet officials are appointed by him, and they're very loyal to him. So no, and I don't. I think you could get potentially an impeachment proceeding started, and as you know, there are several presidents that have been impeached by the House. Bill Clinton was impeached by the House, but not removed by the Senate. Trump was impeached twice by the House, but not removed by the Senate. It takes a 2/3 vote in the Senate to remove anybody. So I don't think that the cabinet is going to try to remove him. But I think the big issue is what ends up happening in the midterm elections if this thing doesn't get wrapped up.
Just really quickly.
David, you mentioned something that's very concerning to me, because our representatives in the Senate need to be loyal to the people. They need to be loyal to America. And when I was walking down the hallways of Congress, one of the things that disturbed me was hanging above the nameplates of many of our Congress and Senate was "I stand with Israel." And I went and Googled, all the ones who had this over there, and they were all Republicans. And then I went and looked up all the ones who had over the nameplates, that they were for America. They listed stats of deaths by guns and how we need to do better for America. And all of those were Democrats. So I think people need to take a long look about who they elect and put in place a person who's going to take your best interest into consideration, not the president's, because it's really concerning to me when I walk down the halls of Congress and I see a sign over nameplates that say "I stand with Israel," but they don't stand for me. That concerns
I know plenty of Democrats who stand with Israel. And I know,
I know they do, but I didn't see it over their nameplates like I did the Republicans.
I'm not sure how many offices you saw. But
Yeah.
I know plenty of Republicans who stand for America. I will tell you what I think the biggest problem is. The biggest problem is the Republicans are blindly following Trump, and that's wrong. And the Democrats are blindly opposing Trump, and that's wrong. They're both wrong.
I hear what you're saying, Dave, but just really quickly, because I was going to bring up, and I brought his name up before. I know some people are fans of him, some people are not, and I'm not saying that I have a view one way or the other. I'm just interested to hear what your thoughts are. But J.P. Morgan Chase and Company Chief Executive Officer Jamie Dimon said the U.S. needs to get stronger in order to maintain its military and economic might, and he detailed his bank's plans to deploy more than $1 trillion to ensure that happens and everything like that. So I was wondering your thoughts on this, because he's saying that we need to have this strong economy, and he did this in a pair of initiatives, including what they're calling the American Dream Initiative, which he unveiled last week, which is aimed at expanding economic opportunities in local communities in the U.S. So I was wondering your thoughts around some of our organizers of big business now trying to find ways to help the economy, whether that's directly or indirectly by not going the government route, because it sounds like he's putting his own money where his mouth is.
Well, I think very highly of Jamie Dimon, who's chairman and CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase. What I would encourage you to do is I'm going to give you something to look up, do a little homework. Take a look at the Grand Bargain Project. It's a website, the Grand Bargain Project. I'm one of their advisors, and they have a number of goals, one of which is expanding economic opportunity, one of which is putting our financials in order, one of which is getting energy, dealing with the energy issue. They have over 80% support from representative groups of Americans for this framework for reform, and I would encourage you to find out more about it. But in the final analysis, we have to keep in mind the engine of growth and innovation in the U.S. economy is the private sector. And so we need to be doing more public-private sector cooperative arrangements, including and fundamentally reviewing and restructuring the federal government because it's not sustainable in its present form.
Yeah, just really quickly.
I mean, we incurred over 355,000 job losses that are documented right now and growing. And with Amazon laying off 30,000 people, that's a huge hit when you lay off that many people at one time, and the ripple effect that incurs to the local economy is even worse. And generally, for every one job that you lay off, you will lose 10 in the local economy. So I think we need to take into consideration things back at home and stop starting wars. I mean, we just need to stop it. We need to stop throwing away our money, bombing other countries, and focus internally on ourselves. I mean, that's just my own thoughts. And the budget for war It's unnecessary, if you ask
That
me.
was definitely unnecessary. Hey, David, just really quickly, I'm glad you brought that up because I'm also seeing a lot of here in North Carolina, not just public companies, but nonprofit companies that are also finding innovative ways to get involved in economic growth as well. Because I know that one of the cultural centers that I'm working at and everything is even looking at doing some job development and also doing some asset gaining as well. So looking at gaining some properties in order to maintain what they're doing. So I'm seeing not just in the public sector, but also in the nonprofit sector as well.
Well, the nonprofit sector is very large and growing, although you have to look at what's the source of their funding.
Right.
Now, in many cases, the nonprofit sector funding is coming from government.
Right, and that's why a lot of the nonprofits are doing what I'm saying. They're going into some of the private sector, so they're becoming like nonprofit private sector partnerships that we didn't always see before, and everything like that. So.
Another issue that may come up tomorrow, David, which we don't want to talk about, is the Donald has said that he's going to start blowing up bridges and electrical grids of Iran if they don't meet his demands. And of course, we know the Iranians will probably not meet his demands. So are we going to see chaos and infrastructure being destroyed en masse tomorrow per his promise, or is he going to back off?
Only God knows that, and He hasn't told me. So I will say this: we've already destroyed the largest bridge in Iran that connects Tehran to other parts of the country. I think we have to think very carefully to the extent that there are strategic targets that have more military rather than civilian implications. I think those are legitimate targets. To the extent that you're talking about, an energy facility that's there to support military operations, that's fine. But to the extent that you're just destroying their ability to be able to generate electricity for the civilian population, I think that's a very different story. I think it's going to be extremely difficult to be able to topple the government through air power. I don't think we're going to invade Iran for lots of reasons. Okay. And I think ultimately, the most realistic answer, I think, is for us to declare victory militarily. We'll have to decide what we're going to do with Karg Island. I think the jury's still out about whether or not we're going to destroy Karg Island or try to control Karg Island. Okay. I think it's unlikely that we're going to mount an operation to try to recover all this uranium. It's possible, but if it is, it would be a special forces operation. It wouldn't be an invasion, if you will. But obviously a much larger operation than what happened over the weekend to recover the pilot and the weapons officer. But politically, I don't think this thing can drag out for weeks and months. I just don't think it can, and hopefully it won't.
But how is this going to end, though? I mean, I don't see this ending. I know it's not supposed to.
It ends by declaring victory, whether it is victory or not.
Declaring victory and walking away. Well, Jacoby's not going to walk away, so we'll bring him forward.
Declaring victory and passing the baton.
Pass the baton. Okay, I'm passing the baton to Jacoby.
From what I gather, because I even shared it in the chat, it looks like the University of Tehran was hit, and that is what I guess that goes along with what Nick was talking about potentially striking other civilian targets, but that crosses a line supposedly that it is a war crime because according to the Geneva Conventions, all the other things that we're supposed to abide by, hitting these civilian targets and taking out and throwing civilians into the dark just by taking out these structures, that would be very wrong and against everything we're supposed to stand for.
Who hit it?
It right now they're figuring it all out, but of course with the bombing that's going on right now, it looks to be potentially like the girls' school.
Right.
So
the question is, was it Israel or was it us? We'll see. We should never target civilians. Never, ever, ever.
But the problem is that's what Nick had just asked about the civilian targets. That
Yeah, I said I didn't think that we should target,
yeah,
not only civilians but electric capacity that is civilian related. If it's something that's dedicated to the military or something, that's different. But if it's for the general population, my personal view is we should not target that.
and I think that's the sad part is that's where we are right now, because that's what he's threatening to do, is hitting those civilian targets.
Yeah.
And that's the scary part, because we knew he was crossing a line when he started this, and he continues to cross a line and not getting pushed back. And we're at a point where, I mean, Dr. Sharif is talking about how it's so destabilized. The energy infrastructure for Bangladesh is now shot. And that isn't just the only country where it's destroyed. There are other areas within that whole region due to the destabilization of what Trump is doing has caused such a problem. And I guess we're all at the point of how do we fix this? Because it is true, Iran's not going to just say, hey, we agree, all these things that you say. That's not going to happen. That's never going to happen. And then the regime hasn't changed. They actually have more money now than they did before. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. So if they survive the whole thing, then they're coming out in their minds in a lot stronger position. And financially, technically they are, because because of the amount of money coming in based on the amount of oil that they're selling. I mean, you're looking at billions of dollars coming directly to them.
They're only selling a small fraction of the oil that they would otherwise sell.
Yeah, but don't we have a math problem here also, that when they said 80% of the Iranians do not support the regime, that means basically 20% or 20 million do support the regime. And David, if they start taking out infrastructure and hurting the average Iranian, you're going to lose a lot of that 80% support that you have.
I agree, and that's why I say I wouldn't target those facilities. Secondly, the problem is that while 80% of the people don't support the regime, they're unarmed.
Right.
And the regime is heavily armed, and the regime has no respect for human life. None.
And also that even though we count that 80%, that 80% isn't, hey, 80% loves America. It's not a realistic thing that we have to believe in. It's not true. So yes, the 80% may not like the regime that's there. It's not like 80% loves America because
no, they're totally different things. I mean, they're totally different things. Yeah. Okay, but let me come back to what I said. I need to get going to another commitment.
Hey, before you leave, because I know we're winding down, and that's a good thing and all along those lines. But I've got to ask you something that has nothing to do with economics, but it is an important question that a lot of people are wondering, because you, like me, are a sports fan, and most people are thinking that Michigan's going to beat Connecticut without any problem, just like UCLA killed South Carolina. But what is your pick on the national championship game today that'll be taking place this evening?
I'm not betting any money. I want UConn to win because I lived in Connecticut for 9.5 years. If you saw their comeback against Duke, which was historic, and Duke was the number 1 overall seed, I think Michigan is favored, and I can understand why. I would prefer UConn to win, but I'm not betting any money on it.
Well, I feel you. I was actually rooting for Dawn Staley in South Carolina, and she got killed because that was not a pretty game at all. UCLA totally
it was ugly.
It was very ugly. It was very ugly.
Well, you guys may want to continue for a few minutes, but I apologize. I've got another commitment. Let's hope this thing gets wrapped up soon for all of our sake. Okay?
Yeah.
And the world. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take it easy. Let's definitely hope it gets wrapped up. But yeah, that game was ugly, Jatovi, and everything like that. But yeah, that was an ugly game, no doubt about it, and everything like that. But I don't know what's going on in the cricket world over there, Sharif. I'm sure your teams are doing well because that's the sport that y'all follow more than y'all is following anything to do with the NCAA basketball.
Yeah, now football become very popular in Bangladesh. Bangladesh youth team, they win against India and win SAF, the South Asian Football Championship for the youth. This is very interesting, and we have one of the uh, 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 football player. Definitely, he's Bangladeshi but born in USA. So he played a lot. His name is Sullivan. So this is very interesting. We are observing that football also improving in Bangladesh, and people has a lot of tensions for losing their jobs, for energy, for healthcare because of this war and everything. And we should stop this war as soon as possible. That is the required thing right now.
Yep, no doubt about it. So we get ready to wrap it up. Any big thoughts that you got on your mind, Jacoby, and everything as we get ready to wrap up? Nick, we're going to talk with his computer because I'm hearing background noise. Y'all hear it on my computer, but this time it's Nick.
I don't have any brand new things.
Well, you do have the Bulls playing. The baseball team is back running.
That's not anything brand new. No, I mean, don't have any brand new things that I can think about to add in. I haven't had a chance to play Crimson Desert, which is a brand new game. The Where the Wind Meets, which is actually made by a Chinese developer. Great game still. I still enjoy that. But I don't really have much.
Well, I did go by and see at least 3 or 4 because me and Martin went and hung out at a restaurant downtown Durham. So I did see a bunch of people dressed up as furries. You're right, it is somewhat scary seeing the furries around downtown, but they're gone now because they were here for about 4 days. But yeah, that was definitely interesting seeing people dressed as dogs, foxes, and whatever other animals they felt like dressing up that was a fur. But yeah, the furries are a scary bunch.
Yeah. Anyway, we had a power outage here in Europe, so just briefly. But I guess we're winding up, so I guess the media show's next.
The media show's next
on Economics with the Honorable David M. Walker.
Yeah.